Give us some perspective here. You've seen a fair number of these shutdowns. There have been, I think, 22 since 1976. How does this compare? Is this different from what we've seen before, or is it just more of the same?
It's a little bit different, David, in that it's not the entire federal government, right? A lot of the federal government is funded, and we have a handful of agencies and their employees who are affected by this shutdown. But past that, I think it's more of the same. It's always politics that shuts down the federal government. It's never really about the money, and I think we have that situation one more time.
So more than 17 days ago, before this all happened, you were on this air, and you said the fact that it's a partial shutdown makes it more likely to happen. Does it also make it more likely to go on even past the record?
I think that's true. We have not seen dramatic fallout yet from this event. So it's possible in the federal government to pre-fund a lot of employees for up to 2 weeks. And so we've been through the 2 weeks. Their agencies might have been able to have some cash lying around. Things will now start to tighten from the point of view of managing the shutdown. We'll see more cases like the employees complaining about financial distress. We'll see more backlogs at the national parks in terms of maintenance. You know, at some point, places even like the FDA run out of money and they can't process new applications for drugs. So, you know, it'll start to impair the performance of the government, and people will care about that. The good news, I think, is there's been very little economic fallout from this. To the extent that there's any, it's that the president likes to change course dramatically. That's a negotiating tactic. Wall Street's always nervous about figuring out what the future of policy is. So in this situation, those veering, changing courses upset markets a little bit. But I don't think there's been a big effect.
So as you say, Doug, thus far, those employees have not failed to get their paychecks. We have something like 800,000 as of Monday will start not getting their paychecks. Going out past that, we have income tax refunds that will not get cut for people. We have various issues. At what point, if ever, will that really start to affect the underlying economy?
Well, I don't think those are genuinely going to become macroeconomic issues. They're going to matter enormously to the people affected. There's no way to minimize that impact. That will also, however, change the politics. At some point, if you're a member of Congress, a senator or a congressman, and you go home and you have constituents saying, I've had it with this, it's no longer about the larger theater of wall or no wall, Democrats win, president wins, and what's going on right now. It's about constituent politics, making sure that you set the table to get reelected, and that changes the way people think about it. And then they start calling the White House and saying, "Hey, we got to get this done," and that will change things. There's
another deadline coming up, and it's not precise, but it's the debt ceiling deadline, which is around about March 1. It'll be something after that, without a doubt. I'll put a chart up here that actually shows we're going to bump up against that pretty quickly here. That could have real ramifications if, in fact, we start flirting with not raising the debt limit and actually even defaulting.
Yeah, I think it should be made very clear to everyone in the public that there is no reason to not either raise or suspend the debt limit. To fail to do so and to in any way impair the liquidity of treasuries is to threaten the global financial system, and that's just, on the face of it, very unwise. I will point out that when the Democrats took over the House, they passed a set of rules that included a provision for an automatic suspension of the debt ceiling if they pass a budget. And so there's a mechanism for the House to automatically suspend the debt ceiling, send that suspension bill over to the Senate if they merely pass a budget. There may be a temptation by the part of the Senate to say, hey, we have this thing in front of us, let's just do it. And it could be easier than in years past to get the debt limit raised. Let's hope so.
So finally, Doug, as we talk about the possible ramifications of this, sentiment is terribly important in markets. I mean, markets are to a significant degree driven by sentiment. Is there a risk here that there's not only concern in the markets about substantive policies or changes in policies, but actually whether the government can effectuate whatever policies President Trump wants to pursue? Because at some point it looks like they can't shoot straight.
I worry about that. And as I said, I think to the extent there's been an economic fallout, it comes from exactly that channel. Market participants looking at this saying, okay, they can't even get on the same page for something simple like funding part of the government. And in the process of trying to get there, the nature of the negotiations are that they veer all over the place, so I don't know what to believe is the direction of policy. Both of those are bad from the perspective of market sentiment, and we've seen some bad market sentiment recently.